Wisdom, wisdom, that's the test. Which rival wisdom team is best? Quote definitions and synergies defined by Claude AI, coordinated by Grandpa Lou Valier. Take care and enjoy.
Quote Team 39, lead courageously. Quote definitions, biographical context, and synergy analysis to replace hate with motivationaleducation.com to guidealife.com. Quote 39.1, aspire rather to be a hero than merely appear one. Baltasar Gracián, 1601 to 1658. Quote definition, the gap between genuine heroism and its performance is vast, and the temptation toward the latter, toward the appearance of courage, the reputation for principle, the optics of leadership, is always more immediately comfortable than the harder work of actually becoming what one wishes to appear. Genuine heroism is an interior achievement before it is an exterior reputation. Aspiring to the appearance without pursuing the substance is the most available form of self-deception. Quote application, courageous leadership in the mission of making America wiser and kinder requires the genuine article, actual courage in the face of actual resistance, actual commitment to actual difficulty, not the performance of commitment in comfortable conditions. Gracián opens Team 39 with a standard that all 8 quotes will elaborate. Aspire to be, not merely appear. Baltasar Gracián appears in Teams 12, 16, 21, 22, 26, and 28 across these 52 teams. His practical moral philosophy covers more distinct frameworks than almost any other author in the collection. Born in 1601 in Belmonte de Calatayud, Aragon, this Jesuit priest spent his career observing the courts and institutions of 17th century Spain with the precision of someone who had watched what worked and what didn't across decades of careful attention. His art of worldly wisdom is a sustained argument for the genuine substance of character over its social performance, for being rather than appearing, and his observation about aspiring to heroism rather than its appearance is one of its most direct statements. He had watched enough people perform virtue without possessing to understand that the performance was always eventually exposed, and that the aspiration to genuine heroism was both more difficult and more durable than its theatrical substitute. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Direct aspiration toward the genuine interior development of courage, principle, and character rather than toward the exterior reputation that genuine development eventually produces as its byproduct. 2. Apply the be rather than appear test regularly. Is the action being taken from genuine commitment or from the desire to be seen as committed? The distinction matters more than it is comfortable to acknowledge. 3. Trust that genuine heroism, actual courage, actual commitment, actual service will eventually produce the reputation that performing it without possessing it only temporarily fakes.
Quote 39.2. All who joy would win must share it. Happiness was born a twin. Lord Byron, 1788 to 1824. Quote definition. Joy and happiness are inherently social. They are not fully possessed until they are shared, because the very nature of genuine happiness is its twinned quality. It exists in the giving as much as in the receiving, in the sharing as much as in the having. The person who hoards happiness misunderstands its structure. The person who shares it discovers that sharing is not a diminishment but the condition of its fullness. Quote application. Courageous leadership in the mission of making America wiser and kinder is itself an act of joyful sharing. The happiness of genuine wisdom, genuine human dignity, and genuine community is a twin that only becomes fully real when it is shared broadly. Byron's paired observation is both the motivation and the reward. Share the joy of wisdom, and find that the sharing is where the joy becomes most fully what it is. Lord Byron appears in teams 21, 29, 32, and 38 across these 52 teams. Born in 1788 and dead at 36, Byron packed more living, and more observation about what genuine happiness required, into his brief life than most people manage across twice that span. His observation about happiness as a twin reflects both his poetic philosophy, which held that beauty and joy were relational rather than solitary, and his personal experience of how sharing genuine enthusiasm, genuine love, and genuine creative energy multiplied rather than diminished what he felt. The couplet from Don Juan is among his most memorable compressed observations. All who joy would win must share it, because happiness was born a twin and exists in both halves simultaneously. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Share the joy of wisdom, of genuine human connection, and of genuine understanding actively and generously, because the twin nature of happiness means the sharing is where the full possession begins. 2. Recognize that the courageous leader who shares rather than hoards the joy of genuine wisdom is not diminishing their possession but completing it. 3. Apply Byron's twin principle to the mission. Every act of sharing wisdom, every extension of genuine community, every moment of genuine human warmth given away is happiness fully possessing itself through the giving.
Quote 39.3. Tact is the art of making a point without making an enemy. Isaac Newton 1643 to 1727. Quote definition. Tact is not the softening of truth or the avoidance of difficult points, but the skill of delivering genuine truth, genuine disagreement, or genuine criticism in a way that the recipient can actually receive, without triggering the defensive response that turns potential allies into opponents. The tactful person makes the same point as the tactless one. They simply make it in a way that preserves the relationship through which future points can also be made. Application. Courageous leadership in the mission of replacing hate with wisdom requires both the courage to make the point and the tact to make it without creating unnecessary enemies. The truth about hatred's costs, about human dignity's universality, about wisdom's availability, all of it deserves to be said with the skill that allows it to be received. Newton's principle is the standing instruction. Make the point, and make it without making an enemy of the person who most needs to hear it. Isaac Newton was born in 1643 in Woolsthorpe, Lincolnshire, England premature, small enough to fit in a quart pot according to family legend, and became the most important physicist in the history of science. The inventor of calculus, simultaneously with Leibniz, the discoverer of the laws of motion and universal gravitation, the author of the Principia Mathematica, and the person who, more than any other single individual, established the framework of classical physics that governed science for 2 centuries. He was also notoriously difficult in personal and professional relationships. His priority disputes with Leibniz and Hooke were prolonged and bitter, and his management of the Royal Mint was characterized by the same relentless precision he brought to physics. His observation about tact as the art of making a point without making an enemy comes from a man who had experienced the consequences of its absence throughout his career, and who had concluded that the skill he sometimes lacked was genuinely worth possessing. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Develop tact as a genuine skill, not the avoidance of difficult truths but the craft of delivering them in ways that preserve the relationship through which they can be received and acted upon. 2. Apply the point without enemy standard to every difficult truth the mission must speak. Say it, and say it with the skill that makes it receivable rather than the bluntness that makes it merely heard and rejected. 3. Recognize that tact and courage are not opposites but partners. The tactful, courageous communicator makes more genuine points over time than either the courageous but tactless or the tactful but silent.
Quote 39.4. Convictions are more dangerous foes of truth than lies. Friedrich Nietzsche, 1844 to 1900. Quote definition. The lie is at least aware of its opposition to truth and can be corrected when exposed. The conviction, the deeply held, sincerely believed, emotionally invested certainty, is far more dangerous precisely because it is not aware of its potential distance from truth and resists correction with the full force of genuine belief. The convicted person cannot be easily reached because they are not deceiving. They are genuinely, sincerely wrong, which is the most entrenched available form of error. Quote application. This is one of the most important observations in the collection for anyone working to change minds that are held by sincere conviction rather than deliberate deception. The people who embrace hatred, prejudice, and dehumanization most persistently are usually not lying. They genuinely believe. That genuine belief is, as Nietzsche names it, more dangerous than a lie, because it cannot be corrected by simply exposing the deception. Genuine wisdom education must reach the conviction itself. Friedrich Nietzsche appears in Teams 13, 29, and 33 as well. Born in 1844 in Rocken, Prussia, and producing his most important philosophical work in the decade before his mental collapse in 1889, Nietzsche was the most penetrating psychological observer of the 19th century. His observation about convictions as more dangerous than lies comes from Human, All Too Human, 1878, his first aphoristic work, and reflects his lifelong study of the mechanisms by which human beings maintain false beliefs. He had identified sincere, emotionally invested conviction as the primary obstacle to genuine truth-seeking, more intractable than deliberate deception because it combines the full resistance of genuine emotion with the complete absence of the self-awareness that makes deception correctable. He had watched enough sincerely held beliefs cause enough damage to know that sincerity was not the same as accuracy. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Apply special scrutiny to your own most sincerely held convictions, precisely because their sincerity makes them the most resistant to correction if they are wrong. 2. Approach genuinely convicted opponents of the mission with the patient, indirect engagement that genuine conviction requires. Not the exposure of deception, but the gradual encounter with experience and evidence that can shift what is genuinely believed. 3. Recognize Nietzsche's warning as the standing caution for the mission itself. Examine the mission's own convictions regularly, because sincerity of belief is not a guarantee of accuracy, and the most dangerous foes of truth sometimes come from inside the house.
Quote 39.5. Cowards die many times before their actual deaths. Julius Caesar, 100 to 44 BC, attributed. Quote definition. The coward experiences death, the terror, the paralysis, the surrender of agency, repeatedly, in every situation that requires the courage they will not summon. The brave person dies only once, at the actual moment of death. The coward dies again and again in every avoided risk, every abandoned commitment, every choice to shrink rather than meet what the moment requires. Quote application. Courageous leadership costs less than cowardice. The person who avoids the difficult conversation, the uncomfortable truth, the commitment that might fail, pays the cost of that avoidance repeatedly, in the accumulated deaths of every missed opportunity for genuine courage. The mission's leaders and the people it serves are all offered the same choice: die once courageously, or die many times in the comfortable avoidance of what courage would require. This observation is most familiar from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, Act 2, Scene 2, where it is spoken by the character of Caesar. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. Whether the historical Gaius Julius Caesar, 100 to 44 BC, himself said anything similar is uncertain. The sentiment is attributed to him in various forms in ancient sources. Caesar was born into the Roman patrician class, rose through military and political success to become dictator perpetuo of Rome, and was assassinated by senators on the Ides of March 44 BC. He was himself many things, but cowardly was not among them. His military campaigns from Gaul to Egypt to the Civil War demonstrated the consistent personal courage that the observation contrasts with cowardice. Whether he said these exact words or not, they are among the most memorable and accurate observations about the accumulated cost of avoided courage in any language. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Recognize the repeated cost of cowardice as greater than the single cost of courage, the avoided confrontation, the withheld truth, the abandoned commitment all extract their death price repeatedly. 2. Apply this to the specific cowardices most available to the mission's work: the comfortable silence about hatred, the avoided difficult conversation, the withheld honest engagement that courage would require once. 3. Choose the single genuine death of courageous honest engagement over the many deaths of its repeated avoidance, because Nietzsche's coward has already died several times by the time the moment of physical death arrives.
Quote 39.6. Anger is never without a reason, but seldom with a good one. Benjamin Franklin, 1706 to 1790. Quote definition. Anger always has a cause, something that genuinely produced the emotional response, some perceived injustice, threat, or frustration that is real to the person experiencing it. But having a cause is not the same as having a justification. Most anger, while generated by a real stimulus, is disproportionate, misdirected, or attached to a response that the cause does not actually warrant. The distinction between having a reason and having a good one is where wisdom about anger lives. Quote application. The hatred that the mission addresses is always anger-based. There is always a reason for it, some real grievance or fear or frustration that the hatred has attached itself to. Franklin's principle is the starting point for genuinely engaging with that hatred. Acknowledge the reason, because the anger is never without one, while examining whether the reason is actually good enough to justify the response, because it seldom is. The acknowledgement is the beginning of genuine engagement. Benjamin Franklin appears throughout these 52 teams with characteristic practical wisdom. His observation about anger's reasons and their quality reflects his lifelong combination of genuine empathy. He understood that people were always responding to something real, and clear-eyed assessment of whether that something justified the response it generated. He had been angry himself, had observed anger in others, and had developed the nuanced position that the anger was real, the cause was real, and the question was always whether the cause was good enough to warrant the response. His Poor Richard persona delivered this observation with the wry precision that made it simultaneously a gentle acknowledgement and a penetrating challenge. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Acknowledge the reason behind anger, in yourself and in others, before evaluating whether the reason justifies the response, because the acknowledgement is what makes genuine engagement possible. 2. Apply the reason versus good reason distinction to the hatred the mission encounters. Yes, there is a reason. Is it actually a good one? The question, asked honestly, is often where genuine reconsideration begins. 3. Use Franklin's paired observation as the diplomatic entry point. Acknowledge the reason first, examine its quality second, because the person whose anger is dismissed as reasonless is far less reachable than the person whose reason is taken seriously before its quality is examined.
Quote 39.7. Money can't buy love, but it improves your bargaining position. Christopher Marlowe 1564-1593. Quote definition. The genuine article, love, wisdom, respect, genuine human connection, cannot be purchased because it is not a transaction but a response to what a person genuinely is. But resources, capability, and the material advantages that money represents do genuinely improve the conditions under which genuine connection becomes possible. The money does not produce the love. It removes some of the obstacles that poverty places in love's way. Quote application. For the mission, the wit of the observation extends beyond romance. Genuine wisdom, genuine community, genuine human transformation cannot be bought, but having sufficient resources, capability, and organizational strength genuinely improves the conditions under which they become possible. Build the bargaining position honestly. Recognize that what genuinely matters must be earned in the currency that purchasing cannot provide. Christopher Marlowe was born in 1564 in Canterbury, Kent, the same year as Shakespeare. The son of a shoemaker, educated on scholarship at Corpus Christi College, Cambridge, and became the most gifted English playwright of his generation before Shakespeare's full emergence. His Tamburlaine Dr. Faustus and the Jew of Malta established the blank verse dramatic form that Shakespeare perfected. He died at 29 in a tavern brawl in Deptford under circumstances that have generated conspiracy theories about espionage ever since, having in his brief career also apparently worked as a government intelligence agent for Queen Elizabeth's spy network. His wit was characteristically sharp, his social observation precise, and his observation about money and bargaining positions has the quality of a genuinely funny truth that remains accurate across 4 centuries. Whether the attribution is watertight or popular tradition, the wit has Marlowe's fingerprints on it. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Distinguish clearly between what resources can provide, better conditions, reduced obstacles, improved position, and what they cannot. The genuine love, wisdom, and human connection that only genuine character produces. 2. Build the resources and capability that improve the mission's bargaining position honestly. While never confusing the improved position with the genuine article, it helps make possible. 3. Apply Marlowe's wit as the standing reminder. Money genuinely helps, and pretending it doesn't is its own form of untruth. But the thing most worth having must be earned in a currency that money cannot print.
Quote 39.8. A mighty flame followeth a tiny spark. Dante Alighieri 1265-1321. Quote definition. The greatest fires begin with the smallest initiating spark, a single genuine act of courage, a single word of genuine wisdom, a single moment of authentic human connection can ignite something far beyond what the spark itself suggests. The mightiness of the eventual flame is not predictable from the teeniness of the original spark. The spark is simply the necessary beginning that the flame cannot exist without. Quote application. Team 39 closes with Dante's image as the complete statement of what courageous leadership in the mission ultimately hopes for. The tiny spark of genuine wisdom education, genuine community building, genuine human connection, igniting the mighty flame of a culture genuinely changing toward wisdom and kindness. The spark is available. The flame is possible. The tiny beginning is the only starting point the mighty ending can have. Dante Alighieri was born in 1265 in Florence, was exiled from his native city in 1302 following the political defeat of his faction, never returned, and spent the remainder of his life composing the Divine Comedy, the most architecturally ambitious poem in Western literature, a journey through hell, purgatory, and paradise that synthesized the full theological, philosophical, and political knowledge of medieval Europe into a single sustained vision. The opening line of the Paradiso, the section from which this observation comes, describes the divine love that moves the sun and stars as the original mighty flame, of which the poet's ability to comprehend it is the tiny spark. Dante understood from the structure of his own great work that the tiny beginning, the first terzina, the first canto, the first step of the journey, was the necessary condition of everything that followed. He had started from nothing and arrived at a poem that 700 years later is still read, still studied, still illuminating. This quote specifically encourages individuals to 1. Value and commit to the tiny spark, the single act of genuine wisdom, the single honest conversation, the single community relationship, as the necessary beginning of the mighty flame that no one can predict from its initiation. 2. Resist the discouragement of the spark's apparent smallness. Dante's poem began with a single word, and the single word was sufficient as a beginning because it was genuinely committed to. 3. Apply Dante's closing image to the mission. Every tiny spark of genuine wisdom education is the potential beginning of a mighty flame in a community, a family, a person, and the mission's work is to strike the spark with genuine courage and genuine commitment, and trust the fire to follow.
How they work together as a unified philosophy to replace hate with motivational education to guidealife.com. The Lead Courageously framework. Character layer, being over appearing, and joy through sharing. Quotes 1, 2. Gracián. Establish the foundation of courageous leadership. Aspire to be a hero, not merely appear one, making genuine interior development the only valid aspiration rather than its exterior performance. Byron. Ground that genuine heroism in the relational joy of sharing. Happiness is a twin that only fully exists when given, ensuring that courageous leadership is motivated by genuine generous joy rather than the performance of virtue for personal credit. Together, the substance and the spirit of courageous leadership. Gracián demands the genuine interior heroism over its appearance. Byron provides a spirit that makes that genuine heroism joyful rather than grim. The shared happiness that doubles through giving, making courageous leadership not a sacrifice, but a joy that becomes fully itself through being shared. Skill layer, tact making points and convictions endangering truth. Quotes 3, 4. Newton, provide the essential skill of courageous leadership, making the point without making an enemy, ensuring that genuine truth is delivered with a craft that allows it to be received rather than merely triggered defensively. Nietzsche, apply the most important caution available to anyone carrying genuine convictions. Convictions are more dangerous than lies, ensuring that courageous leadership includes the regular examination of its own most sincerely held beliefs. Together, the skill and the self-scrutiny of courageous leadership. Newton's tact ensures that genuine truth is communicated with the craft that makes it receivable. Nietzsche's warning ensures that what is being communicated with such skill has been honestly examined, because sincere conviction is the most dangerous foe of truth available, and the courageous leader must apply courage to their own beliefs as rigorously as to their public positions. Courage layer. Many deaths of cowardice and anger's real reason. Quotes 5, 6. Caesar, name the accumulated cost of cowardice. Dying many times before actual death, making the single act of genuine courage consistently cheaper than the repeated death of its avoidance. Franklin, provide the diplomatic intelligence for engaging with the anger and hatred that courageous leadership will inevitably encounter, acknowledging the reason while examining whether it is actually a good one. Together, the cost of cowardice and the intelligence of courageous engagement. Caesar's many deaths make the single courage obviously preferable. The accumulated cost of avoidance far exceeds the one-time cost of genuine honest engagement. Franklin's reason versus good reason distinction is how that courageous engagement is most effectively deployed, acknowledging what drives the opposition before examining whether it justifies the response. Impact layer, resources improving position and spark igniting flame, quote 7-8. Marlowe apply realistic assessment to the role of resources in courageous leadership. Money improves the bargaining position, ensuring that the mission builds genuine material capability while never confusing it with a genuine article it helps make possible. Dante closed the framework with the image of ultimate courageous impact, the mighty flame from the tiny spark, making every single act of genuine wisdom and genuine courage the potential beginning of something far beyond what its smallness suggests. Together, the resources and the ultimate impact of courageous leadership. Marlowe's bargaining position ensures that the mission builds the capability that improves the conditions for genuine impact. Dante's spark and flame is the vision of what that capability, deployed with genuine courage, is ultimately capable of producing, the mighty flame of genuine cultural transformation, ignited by the tiny spark of genuine committed action.
Free Easy Extra Advantage Math, Spelling and Reading Workbooks you can download for free at stop2think.com or buy at educationstopshate.com. Free Easy Math Wisdom Workbooks with octo repetition to grow math self-confidence. You'll get plenty of repetitive practice of age ranges and averages of our 52 teams of 8 quote authors. Free Easy Alpha Cipher-coded puzzles teach letters, numbers, and phrases using antique wisdoms that encourage and educate. Can you decode this cipher quote of encouragement using either our learning to spell or just for fun instructions? And since time is money, practice reading faster with 52 teams of antique rival wisdoms that have passed the test of time to encourage, educate, and entertain generations for centuries. We offer printed versions and timed videos with background music. Sign up for free weekly emails of 52 teams of antique rival wisdom workbooks with easy math, spelling, and reading practice. And, if you'd like to get paid for sharing our wearable wisdoms, keep this in mind. Everyone I know wears a shirt, and most of us change them daily, so change your shirt and change the world. Social equalities are blatantly subliminal antique positive wisdoms repetitively shared without saying a word. This applies to all our wearable shareable wisdoms. Like pretty witty baby onesies and baby tees that you and others will see and read multiple times a day. The same is true with pretty witty kids, but they'll also share these wisdoms with anyone that can read at daycare or school. Youthful truths let your kids gain confidence sharing antique wisdoms with their friends. Imagine them sharing words of wisdom with classmates and teachers. Therefore I think tees I wear is a super easy way to share words of wisdom that have passed the test of time. Our social equalities help make us all wiser and kinder with blatantly subliminal messages promoting a more fair and equal opportunity society for all. And don't forget our giftwisdoms.com for birthdays and holidays that makes it easy to share the wisdom with clothing, coffee mugs, and magnets. So do the future a favor by encouraging, educating, and entertaining with words of wisdom that have passed the test of time to make us all wiser and kinder. With wearable wisdoms to fit babies, kids, and adults. You can clothe a whole family, city, or state. Join the 52 of 8 today.